In today's video, we're taking a look at the latest trade talk around the league. We have a big rumor out of Vancouver regarding Lafreniere. We also have some trade talk around the St. Louis Blues. We also have some other news from around the league, including next year's Winter Classic. Peter Kochetkov as the Rookie of the Month. Plus, we have the NHL Waivers news and a whole lot more. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade talk to take a look at here today. First up, though, this is a pretty important day in hockey history. January the 2nd has had a lot of important and fun things go down over the years. I just want to take a quick look back here at some of the most important things we've seen on this day. There's actually a lot of other things that were relatively important that happened as well that we could talk about. But for example, we saw a couple of goaltender goals on January the 2nd. One of the first one of those being Damian Rhodes of the Ottawa Senators. And it was a really unique situation way back when Damian Rhodes back in the 90s was given credit for a goaltender goal, but he didn't even touch the puck. It was the New Jersey Devils they were playing against. The Devils had their goalie out for a delayed penalty, and they had passed the puck back to the blue line. There was nobody there. It went all the way back down into the goal. Rhodes was the last Senators player to touch the puck, so he was given credit for the goal. So he's not only one of the few goaltenders in NHL history to get credit and score a goal, but he was the first to do it while getting a shutout. So that was what was most unique about that scenario, especially given the unique circumstances around it. The other time it happened was in 2001. Habs goalie Jose Theodore scores a goal, the fifth goaltender in NHL history to give him credit with a goal, and he was the second to also do so while earning a shutout in that game. So Rhodes and Theodore both pulled that feat off. Of course, Theodore's goal was a little bit more of a goal, in the traditional sense. Back in 2002, Ron Francis, of course, the current GM of the Seattle Kraken, also played his 1,000th game and scored his 500th goal. So kind of a unique set of milestones on the same night. 1986, we saw Mike Bossy score goal number 500. In 1980, Gordie Howe became the first player to appear in an NHL game in 5 different decades. Of course, Mr. Hockey had such a long-lasting career, which is a big part of his legacy. In 1992, we saw a major blockbuster 10-player trade between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Calgary Flames, which was the big part. The main piece going to Toronto there was Doug Gilmour. Of course, Gilmour went on to have a great run with the Maple Leafs, making the playoffs and having some important Leaf victories in the playoffs, including 93, where they came so close to going to the Stanley Cup final. We would have had Habs Leafs for the Cup, but unfortunately they fell short to the Los Angeles Kings and Wayne Gretzky. So certainly some big things have taken place on January 2nd and many others too. So an important day in hockey history. And the waivers news today, the Winnipeg Jets have forward Jansen Harkins on waivers. He's appeared in 22 games this year and scored 3 goals. So we'll see at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow if he's picked up or if he ends up clearing and the Jets can reassign him if they wish. Carolina Hurricanes goaltender Peter Kochetkov, who's been named Rookie of the Month for the month of December, went with a 7-0-1 record, a .939 save percentage, including 2 shutouts. He seems to be not only the goalie of the future for Carolina, but the goalie of the present. Antti Ranta's done well as well. Of course, Anderson's been out for quite a stretch. And Kochetkov has kind of secured himself in there, and he's certainly going to make the Calder Trophy race very interesting. At this point, you have to consider him to be potentially the front runner. I mean, what he's doing as a goalie is rather impressive. Tampa Bay Lightning have extended young defenseman Nick Perbix, who's 24 years old, drafted a few years back, get more of an opportunity with the big club this year. He gets a 2-year contract extension valued at $1.125 million per season. Of course, the Lightning, certainly have. They shedded some money on the blue line with Ryan McDonough on the back end. They brought in guys like Myers, and it hasn't really worked out, creating more of an opportunity for a guy like Perbix, who sees the opportunity, has got himself into a few, fair bit of action, more than you might have expected going into the season, that's for sure. Certainly some sad news for Chris Letang. I mean, he unfortunately was not able to participate in the Winter Classic today, and that likely was going to happen anyway because of injury. But unfortunately, earlier today, Chris Letang got the news that his father had sadly passed away and was headed back to Montreal to be with his family. So certainly want to extend our condolences on to Chris Letang. Certainly a sad day in their family for sure. Kevin Weeks is reporting that the NHL has had a delegation visiting Australia exploring potential for future preseason games. And he later updated that to say it seems like there's a few areas like Brisbane, I believe it was, that was mostly being looked at. So certainly they're trying to grow the game globally. Australia is not, an area where it's, super popular at this point, and, obviously, a big country with lots of people there. So be interesting to see how quickly, I guess, they pursue this and what we'll see. But we don't know exactly if or when there will be games there, but certainly interesting to see. A few key injury updates. Washington Capital defenseman John Carlson is going to be out quite an extended time after taking a slap shot to the face. He's already been out for a while, spent time in hospital, and we knew he was going to be out for a bit for sure. But now they're saying that it's likely going to be out for months is the word. They don't have an exact timeline. They're hopeful, and not guaranteed, but hopeful he'll be back in time for the playoffs, assuming Washington qualifies. And right now, that's difficult to say. They're certainly in a position where they could make the playoffs, but it's far from a guarantee. Obviously, if they ends up out for the rest of the regular season, that could possibly impact what they use salary cap wise for LTIR and maybe adding it to deadline. So I'll have to watch that. But obviously, losing him is a huge blow. He's so important to them on the back end. And the St. Louis Blues have a couple of veteran forwards, a couple of guys in the rumor mill, and I expect it to have a high chance of being dealt by the deadline. Both out for an extended time due to injury as well. Vladimir Tarasenko is expected out for about a month, and Ryan O'Reilly is about 4 to 6 weeks. O'Reilly has a broken foot, so that's certainly not good news for both. Not going to help their trade stock, that's for sure. Not going to help the Blues, who are struggling this year to find consistency, and at this rate, are trending towards being a non-playoff team and likely missing. So be interesting to see how they react. We are going to talk about the Blues a little bit further here in just a moment. We also got confirmation today at the NHL's Winter Classic, confirmed by Gary Bettman, that next year's Winter Classic is going to be held in Seattle at T-Mobile Park, the home of the Seattle Mariners, and they will face their, I guess I want to call them expansion cousins, their two most recent expansion teams, the Vegas Golden Knights. I know a lot of people have complained. You see the same teams over and over a lot in the Winter Classics. A lot of teams have had many times where they've been in it, where others have never made an appearance. I've seen people complaining about this already. We get different teams in there. There's just no satisfying some people, I swear. But at the same time, it's nice to see them put it in a different area and, kind of continue to grow the game in the western part of the United States. I think it should be great. Seattle fans have had no problems there packing the building a climate pledge, and I'm sure they'll support this venture, and it should be a great experience for those people. But you got to remember, a lot of these events, too, they're kind of meant for as much as they are an event for TV, they're really meant for more of the in-person experience, and it's not the same. Same with the All-Star game. I know I'm not a huge fan to sit down at home on my couch and watch the All-Star game, but if I went to one in person, I think it'd be entirely different. I've talked to people that have gone, and it's not the same in the least. So we'll have to see how things go on that front, but I'm sure it's going to be a sellout and a huge success out there in Seattle. On the trade front, Elliot Friedman's talking today about some Blues trade rumors, and of course O'Reilly and Tarasenko amongst them. But one other defender that he feels is going to be moved almost for certain is defenseman Nico Mikkola. Mikkola's a pending unrestricted free agent. Friedman's words are that he can play a nasty style of game, and he can play that playoff hockey. So certainly going to gain a fair bit of interest. It seems like it might be not somebody that the Blues are for sure wanting to re-sign, and it might be something that a lot of teams are interested in at the deadline. So look for Nico Mikkola to probably be one of those under the radar kind of acquisitions at the deadline. He also says there's some rumors about Ryan O'Reilly maybe signing a short-term deal that he's kind of heard surfacing. He's not buying it. He feels that Tarasenko and O'Reilly are pretty much goners for sure, and the odds of Doug Armstrong pulling off trades, as long as they can find deals that make sense for them, are extremely likely. So the Blues, I think, it's trending towards being sellers with a fair bit of players on the way out. Now, the big rumor of the day comes from Vancouver and Rick Dhaliwal, who put out a post on Twitter in kind of confirming, which is not a huge surprise, that the Vancouver Canucks would definitely have had interest and have kicked tires on Alexis Lafreniere. Now, of course, doesn't mean they've had serious trade talks, but they've certainly, inquired, and they've wanted to know if there's, any level of seriousness on the Rangers' part to do a trade, and of course, what the return package might look like. Now, like I said, there's no indication that they've had, progressive talks or serious talks. Is more of just a feeling out process, tire kicking, if you will. But at the same time, the connection here is a couple of things. One, Alexis Lafreniere is the exact kind of player that Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin want to add to their organization. They certainly want to get younger, they want to get more skilled, and they want to get players like him that are higher profile. So certainly, he's a player that I think many people feel have, been underdeveloped, and it could really benefit from a change of scenery. We'll have to see if that works out. But the fact that he's a left winger playing behind Kreider and Panarin are both signed long-term and producing at a high level. It's difficult to get him a higher opportunity that he gets for ice time and power play time and all that, which would really benefit him. So a trade, I think for his personal development, I think you could argue makes sense. Does it make sense for the Rangers? Well, it really boils down to the price tag, and that's the big part here. Now, the other connection here with Vancouver is that their assistant general manager, Emily Castonguay, is his former agent. They know each other quite well, so certainly there could be an appeal there to be in the same organization as his former agent, somebody he certainly has trust with. And certainly Dhaliwal also mentions the fact that Vancouver has a big trade piece on the market in Bo Horvat, and that might be something that the Rangers were rumored to be looking to add a big-time player to really solidify that top six for the playoffs. So certainly they've been linked to Patrick Kane. They've been linked to other guys that are on the market. Was Horvat really any different? He's a really wicked goal scorer this year. It can make a big difference for their team. Now, the thing that I have concerns about is really... should they be trading Lafreniere for a rental player? That's where I'd be careful if I'm New York and Chris Drury. Now, the Vancouver Canucks, back to them for a quick second. They also made mention by Dhaliwal's report here that Kirby Dach, who went to Montreal from Chicago at the draft, is another player that the Canucks were in on and interested in before that trade went down. So certainly, it's no secret and surprise that those are the types of players that they want to acquire. But like I said, from the Rangers' standpoint, if you're trading Lafreniere, I think you need to get something back that's going to be with your franchise for a long time, or you better win the Stanley Cup. It's going to be something that you might haunt yourself with. You get a rental player and you don't win the cup, even if you do, it's still potentially, I guess, hard to say how good it is long term, but at least if you win a Stanley Cup, there's something there that says, well, we got a cup, and that matters, and it's hard to do in this league, and that makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, you want somebody who's going to be in your organization a long time. He goes to Vancouver and he goes on to have a superstar level career that many expected him to have when he was drafted. He doesn't do that in the Big Apple, and you only had, 2 months of Bo Horvat or something to that effect. Certainly that's not what the Rangers are going to want out of this, and that would be a really bad look. And to me, it'd be a fireable offense if you're the general manager talking to ownership there. We know the ownership in New York is a little erratic and can make some pretty tough decisions when things like that, aren't going the way they think it should. So be interesting to see. Certainly, I have no surprise that Vancouver's interested. I also don't have any surprise that maybe the Rangers might want to look at Bo Horvat as a rental. I just don't know. I'd be some careful about making that trade on the Rangers side. If I'm Vancouver and I can move Horvat, I'm probably not going to be able to re-sign it. I can get a guy like Lafreniere in return. Yeah, I'm looking at that for sure. So we'll see what happens, but interesting to see the connection between the two squads. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.